What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Frankie D'Astoli Show. I am your host, Frankie D'Astoli. As always, I'm excited to have you guys here. I have a really cool episode in store today because on April 12th, which was yesterday at the time it's recorded, I'm recording this on April 13th. Yesterday, April 12th, was my partner Stevens and I 1 year anniversary on closing on our first house together as D&D Equities. Now, D&D Equities originated, we started the LLC a little bit before that. So that wasn't necessarily like our 1 year anniversary. If you consider starting the LLC, it was actually on February 29th, which was a leap year. So that'll be really interesting. We'll be young for a long time. But we closed on our first house on April 12th. And although I want to go into the full-blown backstory of how this entire year has been for D&D, I'm going to save that because I want to have my partner Steven on the show at some point. I'm actually trying to figure out how to do in-person recordings. I use a platform called Riverside. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about it, but they're really great for virtual interviews. That's why when I had ironically, I had my boy Justin Eaton at the house. He was in one room. I was in the other because I thought I was going to be able to do in person. I wasn't able to. But then I had Bonnie on. That went really well. We did that virtual. CJ, who was just recently, I got a couple more interviews that are coming out. I know I had Mike and Jay on too. All of that was virtual through Riverside. When I do my interview with my partner, Steven, I want to make sure it's in person because that's just us. As much as I'm sure we'd still make a great episode if it was virtual. And Steven, believe it or not, I'm not a tech guy. Steven's really not a tech guy, so it'll probably be even worse on his end. But I want to just do it in person. I want to do it in person. I want to go through the backstory of D&D year one, tell you guys all the absolute nonsense that we had to go through and what we still currently go through, and all the positives, of course. So I'm saving that. But I want to drop some sort of episode on this 1 year. And if you guys follow me on Instagram, Frankie D'Astoli _RAI, I posted about the 1 year, how we closed on our first house on April 12th. And I actually reflected and I realized that this past year from April 12 of 2024 to April 12 of 2025, Steve and I were at the closing table 30 times. 30 times we were at the closing table this year. We were there for 19 acquisitions, 17 single family homes, two duplexes. We were there for 10 refinances. We did 10 completed BRRRRs, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And then we were there for one wholesale deal. Even though my whole background is wholesale, I've wholesaled for 3 years. I am now transitioned to a point in my life where I buy properties pretty much strictly, right? I'm probably going to, now that we've been buying a lot, I'll maybe send some funds out to some other areas and focus a little more on doing wholesale in those particular areas. But for me right now, the full focus is BRRRRing, is to buying these houses. But all in all, we went to the closing table 30 times, 30 appearances. And I kind of was like, you know what? Let me make a little cool Instagram post and I will do 30 things, 30 lessons, 30, kind of takeaways, if you will, of the year itself. And some of these things I've already known and they just kind of re-emphasized, but some of them were brand new that I really took. So on this episode, if you follow me on Instagram, you saw those 30 things. I'm going to be breaking those 30 things down in this episode, and we're going to go through them. Some of them we'll talk a little bit more on. Some of them will probably be really quick and more so just a sentence, but we're going to go through them. Before I get into that, I want to highlight one of our show sponsors, and I've been talking about the show sponsor a little bit. I'll give them a couple more, and then I'll be moving on to some new sponsors, but Spiritual Warriors Couture. Why I really love Spiritual Warriors Couture, and their name is first and foremost just very fire, but they have the coolest Catholic gear that you could find. And I gave out a handful of their things at the last Rosary and Real Estate event. One of them was the St. Joseph duffel bag that rolls out into a garment bag. And the other was the St. Joseph tumbler for your coffee or your drinks, whatever it is. And their quality is just top of the line, truly. Everything is just really, really great material. It holds really well. It's durable. And it's just super cool design. And it's unique. You don't see this stuff really often. I mean, I cannot find another St. Joseph duffel bag that rolls into a garment bag. And it ain't just St. Joseph. They got all the saints on there that you could pick from, along with a bunch of other stuff. But why I really like them, especially at this point, is, we are in Holy Week right now. We have been in Lent for the past, whatever it's been, 35 days, basically. This is Holy Week. And it is truly a battle. Lent is a battle, and it's demonstrated by Jesus as he goes in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights and is tempted by the devil. Spiritual Warriors Couture arms you with clothing of unbelievable and brilliant saints that have also gone through all the trials and tribulations that you could go through and have made it to eternal heaven with Jesus Christ. It is a great site to grab gear. I can't wait to grab more gear and rep it, especially with the spring and summertime coming up. But I highly recommend Spiritual Warriors Couture. Go on there, use the code Frankie10 for 10% off. Cool. I'm going to get into this episode. So we have, I'm going to pull up my list here. 30, what did I call it really? Let's see. 30 lessons over the course of 30 closings. The first one, right? And I'm going to start ripping these off. We'll start diving into them a little bit. The first one, life rewards people who make uncomfortable decisions. I actually heard this for the first time. My brother-in-law actually had brought this up to me a couple years back when I left my medical device sales job to jump into a real estate wholesale company. I took about a 50% pay cut from my medical device sales job. I left an amazing boss who had really, really great plans for me. And I left a lot of money on the table for a young kid that had just gotten engaged and now had to start planning for a wedding, a honeymoon, and a house. I took a very, very big step there. Thankfully, I had a beautiful fiance who was extremely supportive and is now my supportive wife. But life rewards people who make uncomfortable decisions. And you should be thinking about this. How comfortable are you in your current position, in your current job, in your current life, right? If you are very, very comfortable, you're most likely not going to have growth. Growth does not come from comfort. It comes from pressure. It comes from, being off balance, having to readjust. So think about that in that sense. If you are very comfortable where you are, you're probably not going to be moving much further there. Get yourself out of your comfort zone and push yourself. That's lesson number one. Lesson number two, the relationships you cultivate highly determine your success and how quickly you'll get there. I'm dropping an episode on Wednesday, this upcoming Wednesday, with one of my lenders, Josh Wollaston. And he is a private money lender. I met Josh about 11 months ago. I met him in May of last year. He didn't know who I was. He didn't know who my partner Steven was. We knew him through somebody that was in the real estate business. And we took him out for coffee. And he decided to fund our first deal. And as a private money lender, these guys are really great. They get to select their own terms. They get to determine how they want to do things. He decided he was going to fund 100% of the purchase price, 100% of the renovation. We built, first and foremost, we delivered on that property, right? He funded us. We did the job quickly. We refinanced it back. We paid him. We got his return. He saw the proof. But we built an amazing relationship. And I'm not going to spoil it too much because if you listen to the episode with him, you're going to hear about our relationship a little bit. But we cultivated this great relationship, and he's funded probably about 80% of my 19 acquisitions that Steve and I closed on. And if it wasn't for the relationship I had with him, I would not have 19 houses. We wouldn't have bird 10 deals. We wouldn't have built this portfolio that we built in this past year. And the relationships that you build will determine your success. There's no doubt about it in my mind, right? Relationships over money, especially when you're first starting, in general, I don't even want to say when you're first starting off, but in general, those relationships that you build are super critical. Number three, you don't need to know every step of the plan to get started. I remember when I was leaving my W-2 job, which June 1st will be a full year that I've been out. I put that notice in on May 17th. It's been almost 11 months now. I sat down with my mentor, Rob Fink, who's also been on the show. And, one thing that I really admire about Rob that he had mentioned to me, and I took this and I took it to heart. He doesn't need to know steps, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to do something. He just needs to know the first 3 steps, right? What do I have to do next? What's most likely going to happen after I do that? And what do I have to do after that? And then how am I going to go? How am I going to operate from there? If he knows those 3 steps, he takes action. That's something that I pulled. You do not need to know every step of the plan, right? You don't. And that inspired me to leave my job. I didn't know every step of the plan. Steve and I bought our first house on April 12th, right? I left, like I said, June 1st. We bought one more in between that. I didn't know what was going to happen. At that point, we didn't really even have that relationship with Josh. It wasn't like I could say, oh, we're definitely going to buy, 17 more houses this year. I was like, cool, I'm balling with $7,000 in my bank account. Like I might go broke. I'm not 100% sure. But what I do know is like I have these skills and I can make something happen out of it. and then you just figure it out. Lesson 4, desire plus faith equals success. I pulled this from the book Think and Grow Rich. Great book if you're going to read it. And I'm not a huge fan of a lot of these self-help books because I believe more so in putting my, self in God's hands and letting him take care of it. But I like this equation, desire plus faith equals success. Now, you could have bad desire. Bad desire really kind of forms more into like greed. So try to stay away from greed as much as possible. Obviously, that's one of the deadly sins. But desire, right? I desire more free time with my family. I desire to give my daughter and my son, generational wealth and to have them, to be able to send them to school, college and be able to pay for it. I desire to, on my daughter's, 17th birthday, when she gets her driver's license, to buy her a new car. I desire to buy a house one day that has a massive kitchen because of how much my wife spends time in the kitchen and because she loves to bake and she wants to be able to see from that kitchen in the living room and see the kids. These are good desires, right? These are not bad desires. These are not greedy desires. And that's really what we want to be on the lookout for is greed. We don't want desire to become greed. Like I said, that's one of the 7 deadly sins there. But the equation is desire plus faith. And you got to have faith, right? Yeah, I desire to build this rental portfolio to pass down to my kids. If things go wrong and I don't have faith, I'm relying on myself. When I have faith, I let God take it. And I know that it'll be successful because it is the exact outcome that he desires for my life. And that's the way you got to kind of look at that. Number 5, when it gets the hardest is when you know you're nearing success. This is so true. This is so true. And I think this is where a lot of people stop. They hit that wall and they don't realize, to quote a book from Ryan Holiday, the obstacle is the way. You have to go through the wall. And through that wall, on the other side of the wall, is the success that you're looking for. The wall doesn't signal you to stop. The wall signals you to keep going. Number 6, I love this one. Being broke is a status. Being poor is a mindset. In this past year, I've definitely gone broke. There's no doubt about it. I'll be totally honest with you guys. When I was on the Rich Dad, Poor Dad show, I was more broke than I've been in a long time. But it's not poor. Poor is a mindset. When I go poor, I tap out. When I go broke, I know that it's only temporary. It's a temporary status. It's a temporary state. And I can build myself out of that. And in this past year, I've gone broke. I've been not broke. I've gone broke. I've been not broke. This is kind of the flow of an entrepreneur who's building a rental portfolio. And just this isn't on the list, but you should be aware of that. Number 7. It's never going to be exactly how you want it. You got to adjust and move forward. This is so true. It's never going to be the exact way, right? There's going to always be something that's kind of like jading it a little bit. Don't get hung up on those things. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just keep moving forward. That's something that I learned while building the portfolio for sure. Cold showers is number 8. Cold showers and black iced coffee keeps you focused. I can't recommend it enough. Cold shower. It gets you woke in a good way, not the negative woke. And black iced coffee just hits the veins differently. And if you're doing that, you're going to be locked in. I'm telling you, cold shower, black iced coffee, I'm locked in. I start that up around like 6:30. And I'm pretty much good until about like 2:30, 3 o'clock. And then I'll hit one more, maybe a Doppio double espresso over ice if needed. And then I'm ready. I'm pretty much locked in until the kids go to bed around 7:30, 8 o'clock. Number 9, prudence is good. Paralysis is bad. Prudence, man, everybody thinks prudence is a bad word. Prudence is unbelievable. Prudence is being patient. It's letting some things play out, bringing that, decision to God, saying, hey, what do you think I should do here? Listening to what he says to you and then executing on it. Paralysis, very bad, right? A lot of people in real estate, they get into what's called analysis paralysis, where they're so focused on like finding that perfect deal. And then they actually find that perfect deal and they're analyzing it too much that they still can't even make an offer on it or they still can't close on it. You don't want that, right? And paralysis, again, with building a portfolio, this is very, very common. You could get kind of really in the weeds on a lot of things here. You got to be prudent. Don't make haste decisions, but don't wait, forever to make a call either. Number 10, If you don't find joy in it, it won't last. I remember a couple months ago, I sat down with my team. It's Steven and I, and now we have two other people. We got a property manager, an in-house property manager, and an in-house acquisitions manager. And we sat down, all four of us sat down. I called it the leadership team. And I said, cool, we need to figure out our core values. What are D&D's core values? And we came up with 5 core values. The first one, integrity. The second one, consistency. The third one, loyalty. The fourth one, fortitude. And the fifth one, enjoyment. And this was actually brought up on my acquisition manager, and I loved it. I never thought I would put enjoyment as a core value. But it's the truth. You need to find joy in what you're doing or it won't last. If you are miserable building a portfolio, you're not going to last. You're going to get so burned out. You're not going to find any joy in it. It's going to become more so tedious and more so just something that has negative connotations to it. When we go through problems, which we go through every single day, it's not an exaggeration. I still, because of the fact that I love what I do, I'm still able to find enjoyment out of it. A lot of times when these problems arise, it's more so a mindset of, cool, how do I solve it? Rather than like, this sucks, I'm miserable. I wish I worked at McDonald's. You know what I mean? All right, number 11. Having a supportive spouse is the difference maker. This is like truly the reason why I am where I am is because of my wife, Christina, and I'll gas her up. I don't care. I'll keep gassing her up. But like, she was the person that was asking me, when are you putting your 2 weeks in when I was at my job? She would be asking me like every week. She would be like, cool, are you putting your 2 weeks in? Are you putting your 2 weeks in? Straight up knowing that we have like $6,000 in the savings account and like, that's it, right? She didn't care. It's because A, she's supportive. She knew I wasn't happy where I was, and she knew that I was meant for more. And having that supportive wife has been the difference for me. And everybody out there, I would just say that if you're looking to pick a partner and you want to be an entrepreneur, you don't want to just be somebody who like goes to work, does your 9 to 5, comes home and just like, watch TV or whatever the case might be. You need somebody that's very supportive as your spouse in your corner. It's going to get you a lot further. Number 12, when you're overwhelmed, the answer is always to stop working and to pray. This is so true, right? I try to block off a holy hour every single day. That's part of my MO. When I get overwhelmed, a lot of times I'm more just like, I gotta get to work earlier, right? I'll wake up, I'll do my workout if I could fit it in now with a 6-week-old. It's been a little bit challenging, not gonna lie there. But I'll cut the holy hour. At least that will be my intention. Cut the holy hour so I can get started faster. That's the worst thing that you could do. Praying and surrendering solves all problems. Okay, keep that in mind. Number 13, show up every day, especially the days you don't feel like it. There's those days, even when you have enjoyment and even when you love what you do, there's those days, right? And truly, like, I remember back in November and December, it was almost every single day for me. Every day around, after Thanksgiving and leading up past Christmas into basically January 1st. That was the hardest month of building a portfolio for me. Straight broke. Right around Christmas time, my daughter's first birthday and my wedding anniversary. Very, very challenging stuff. But you got to push through. You have to show up, because especially if it's on you, if you run your business, if you are the business owner, if you are the owner of your real estate, no one else is going to do this for you. No one else is going to do this for you. You need to show up even on the days you don't feel like it. And by showing up, you are putting that work in and you are crawling out of that negative time. You're going to pass. Those days are going to pass. And you got to keep that in mind. Number 14, building a rental empire for your kids gives it so much more value. It's so true. It's so true. I mean, yeah, listen, don't get me wrong. Like, do I want the cash flow from my, portfolio to buy me a fresh car? For sure. Do I want to, like I said, buy a great house and a big house with a big kitchen for my wife? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, remembering that like everything that Steve and I are building when we buy these properties and we renovate them and we rent them out and we're holding them, it's for my kids, it's for his future family. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. It's about passing it on to the next generation. And it gives it so much more value when you think about it that way. Number 15, I love it. Remember, God is always in control. I went to confession back in December, and as I was going through that tough month, I was angry a lot. was just very angry. I was angry with the way a lot of things were going, how they weren't going my way. It was just very, very challenging. And I went to confession and I confessed about the anger that I was feeling. I was losing my temper quite often, not like aggressive or anything like that. I was disrupted is probably the best way to put it. And, my priest, Father Tim, when he heard my confession, he reminded me, he was like, remember that God is at work. He controls your life. And because of that, you can be at peace. And in order to be at peace and in order to understand that, you need to also understand the love God has for you and the mercy he has for you and how he only wants the best for you. Right. And there's documentation of this all within the Bible. And you could go back and you could find any of that stuff, right? Just look up, verses about God's love. You're going to see all of it. But how he really only wants what's best for you. And how when you give yourself over to him, again, that surrender, and you put yourself in the palm of his hands, he will take care of you. And that has been my, consolation going through all of this. Number 16, mentors, need them, use them. Need them and use them. If you are going to get into real estate, I highly suggest getting a mentor. If you are trying to scale a portfolio, you're absolutely going to need them. And I use my mentors consistently. I probably text Rob and Marcus. I definitely text Rob probably once, maybe more than once a week. Marcus, I'd probably say every other week, if not, more than that. 17, this is a good one. Some days you'll have a lot of money. The next you'll have no money. Those who are most successful accept this and push on. There have been times where we've had, a lot of money put into our account, and the next day, I kid you not, it was like gone. Like I remember we had a cash out refinance. We had like 30 grand into our account the next day, and literally like the day after that, it was gone. It was gone, and we were just like, we just blew through 30,000 like so fast. But what you realize is like a lot of times, if you're operating properly, a lot of that is being spent on good things that are also going to increase return, buying more houses, updating houses, updating software, bringing on new team members, whatever the case might be. There's a return that's also involved in that spend, in that burn, essentially. But you have to be able to accept that stress. It's stressful when you see a lot of money in your account and you kind of want to hold it, but you have no choice but to let it go. And you just kind of feel like, oh my gosh, like I need the money. I want it. And then it's like, it's gone. And it's very stressful to understand that. But those who are most successful are the ones that could hang on the longest through that roller coaster, right? Because if this has been happening very early on in our portfolio, like I said, we bought April 12th was our first day. That stuff was happening in May, June, and July. If we were like, we can't take this anymore, we wouldn't be where we are today, where I'm recording this on April 13th with, 19 houses, 21 doors in 1 year, right? So you have to maintain that and you have to keep going. And what you need to realize is the more you keep going, the more that money's going to keep coming in. And eventually, once you have more stability, you'll start being able to chip away at the money that you're pulling in, start pocketing it, start saving it, create reserve accounts, do all these things. And now you have that stability that you've always been looking for. So you got to keep pushing on. Number 18, reading is necessary. I think in 2024, I read 24 books, and my goal for 2025 is 30. I've fallen behind a little bit. I think about like 5 or 6, so I do have a long way to go. But reading is so, so critical. The knowledge that you get in reading, you're not getting it in a lot of other places, right? And that's why I always say, listen to podcasts, get mentors. Education itself is so important. But if you don't like to read, I'm telling you, I see a direct correlation between people who are successful and people who are not successful. And the successful people are always reading. They're always reading. Get into the habit of reading. I did not like to read, but once I started reading and I hated it, but I realized the knowledge that I was gaining from it and the decisions that I started making in my life and the positive impact those decisions had, now I have fallen in love with reading. 19, when things go right, celebrate them. This is really, really important. And I am a total victim of this. There's a lot of times where I'm like, things are going good. Cool. Let's just keep going. We need to take a moment, celebrate those times. And I remember there's been a couple of occasions where I've met with my team, and every single team meeting we start with 2 things. We start with positives, and then we go to problems. So it goes from positives, we highlight the positives, and then we go to problems. And there's been a couple of times, not often, but a couple of times where we've had all positives and we've had no problems. And I just take those and I'm like, guys, we need to celebrate this. Like, everybody get excited about this because this is not going to last. And it never does. It never lasts. Like, literally this last team meeting, There were very, very little positives, if any. I think we had 2 on there, and there were about 8 problems. And that's more of the norm. So when things go right, you need to celebrate them. Number 20, it's not a one-man show. It takes a village. So important, right? Where Steve and I are right now, it wouldn't be for the other 2 members on our team. It wouldn't be for the supportive family and friends that we have. It wouldn't be if it wasn't for our mentors. It wouldn't be if it wasn't for our contractors, our lenders, the agents that we worked with, the wholesalers that we worked with. All of these people contribute, to the success of the company. It is not a one-man show. It truly does take a village. 21, organization is critical. I've really noticed that the most times I'm really stressed out, it's because of lack of organization. You got to get organized. If organization is not your strong suit, I highly, highly suggest reading up on how to be more organized, watching YouTube videos, going to, conferences. I remember one of the best things that I did was I went out to BPCon 24. Shout out to my mentor, Rob, because he basically paid for like half of my trip to go out there, which is really nice of him. But I went out there, I attended they have a bunch of these like little sub conferences within the conference. And I went to this one and the girl there, she was a successful real estate investor, lattes and leases. I'm pretty sure it was her. I'm like 99% sure it was her. On Instagram, she's really big. She gave a speech. No, I don't think it was her actually. Sorry, don't quote me there. I forgot exactly who it was. It sounds terrible. But she gave a speech on just organization, how she's super organized throughout her portfolio and what she does, how her contractors know when they're getting paid, how they're getting paid, how she keeps her books organized, how she has a bunch of standard operating procedures, all of this stuff. And I took so much from that. And then I read another book called Scaling Smart from Kathy and Rich Fedek. And that book was really, really key too. And Traction is another great book by Gino Wickman. So you could read, you could go to conferences, you could listen to podcasts, whatever you got to do. But organization is really, really critical. It's super key. 22, you have to lead by example, period, end, stop. Do not point the finger and say, you should have did this. Can you do that? Can you do that personally yourself? If so, cool. Get in front of the person, do the job, show them how it's done, and then you can hold them accountable, right? But you need to lead by example. If you expect your team, and this is something that I've come across, right? Like between Steven and I, like, of course, we're human, we make mistakes, but if you expect your team to be somewhere at 8:30, we better be there by 8:25, right? No ifs, ands, or buts. And that's how you got to be. When you run an organization, that's how you got to be. You got to lead by example. Otherwise, you are not going to have any loyalty within your team. You're not going to be able to hold people accountable. And ultimately, when employees or whoever it is that is under you, right, is watching you as the leader, and they're seeing you do it, they are immediately more on point. Like, oh, the leader, the captain, they're doing it. We got to do it, right? There's no excuse for me. I got to do it. I got to get it done. So lead by example. That's really, really important. That's number 21. Or I'm sorry, 22. 23, while you're building it, think about preserving it. I think one of the biggest things that's a focus for me in Q2 this year is asset protection. And I had Bonnie on the show a little while ago. She talked about asset protection. But as you're building a portfolio, even if it's not that, right? Even if you're buying one house and you expect that house to be a big part of your retirement plan, or you expect to pass it off to your kids, think about preserving it. Don't just think about building, think about preserving. If you're building a beautiful castle, make sure that you have, a wall around it, and you have a bunch of, members of the army and the guard in front protecting the castle, right? So keep that in mind. 24, the rosary solves every single problem. This is the truth. Pray the rosary, buy real estate. The rosary is a spiritual weapon. It is a pilgrimage through Jesus and Mary's life, Jesus' death, his resurrection. When you pray the rosary, you basically hold the hand of Mary and you pray with her, and you grow in virtue. And in order to achieve heaven, you must grow in virtue. You must be a virtuous person. And I've found such great correlations with this, because in order to build a real estate portfolio and to run a business, you need to have proper virtues as well. 25, no decision is worse than a decision. This kind of rolls with that paralysis and that prudence as well. You got to make a decision. Don't wait too long. And if you don't make a decision on things, it's going to lead to bigger problems, right? Sometimes I come across this a lot with like tenants. A tenant will start acting out a little bit. They'll be behind on their rent. You try to let some things slide. All of a sudden, they're not paying. And now you've never really like held them accountable. You need to make a decision. Hey, they're not paying. Are we evicting them? What are we doing? What is the plan? No decision is worse than a decision at that point. 26, when you fail, make an SOP out of it. Again, an SOP stands for standard operating procedure. When you fail, understand why you failed, right? And then make a standard operating procedure about it so you don't fail exactly again, right? And again, that SOP might not be perfect, but at least it will put you on the right path away from the way that you failed. That's one thing that I learned in regards to failures. 27, trade money for education, right? This was a great thing that I learned when I left my medical device sales job and went into real estate investing. I traded money for education, like we kind of talked about. And then again, when I left that high paying, real estate company in that corporate realm to become a full-time real estate investor, I traded money for education again, right? I traded my, 6-figure salary for, no certainty in pay and a lot of education that was learned when you're buying a lot of houses. But it works out every single time. And you need those skills to continue to grow. Again, life rewards those people that make uncomfortable decisions. Trade money for education. 28, get rich in the niche. Focus on 1 to 2 to 3 things tops, guys. And even there, I'm kind of like, that's a little bit too much. I think when it comes to real estate, really focus on what you want to do. Do you want to be a buy and hold investor? Cool. Focus on that. Do you want to invest in, apartment syndication? Focus on that. Do you want to flip houses? Focus on that. Do you want to focus on midterm rentals for nurses? Focus on that. Just pick that one. Get rich there. Start really diving in. Become the master there. And then once you have that stability and you have that money coming in from that, that's when you could expand to other forms, right? If you go in and you say, I might want to flip a house, or I might want to do a midterm rental, or I might want to buy a laundromat, you're never going to get anywhere. And you're going to do one thing. You're not going to be totally committed to it. So you're not going to grow enough in there to even be successful. And then you're going to pivot to something else and you're not going to grow enough in that one to be successful. And it's this revolving door of you not finding that success and you eventually just thinking that the world's out to get you and you're not going to make it, right? Number 29, purity comes out of struggle. It's funny, if you listen to the bonus track I dropped on Holy Week, this all kind of rolls with that. But through struggle, as I say in Holy Week, through struggle comes salvation. Through struggle also comes purification, right? If I am, if I start a business and I have really bad, organization skills, and let's just say it's with like paying bills, right? Let's say I'm not the best bill payer on time and I start this business up and I miss some bills, and my credit drops. That's a problem. And that leads to a struggle because now I can't get approved for lending because I have bad credit. But what does it also lead to? It leads to a purification because then I learn I need to pay my bills on time. If I don't pay my bills on time, my credit's going to drop and I'm not going to be able to continue to build a portfolio. So through that struggle comes purification. And if you are struggling, you need to look at it as a positive. How could I purify myself through this struggle? Why is this tenant giving me a hard time? What did I do wrong through this process? I was too loose. I let too many late payments slide. Right now they think that they could take advantage of that. These are all examples of how purity comes through struggle. Number 30, generational faith over generational wealth. Generational faith over generational wealth, right? At the end of the day, yes, if you are buying real estate for your kids, it's amazing. I am trying to build an empire for my children. There's no doubt about that. But if I build this empire and it gets taken away from me because somehow I don't have good asset protection and someone sues me and they take all of it, I want my kids to know that I had unmovable faith and I passed that down. So whether they are really, really successful thanks to me or thanks to themselves, whatever the case might be, they may continue to pass down this generational faith to their children so that when they're born, they're baptized, they're raised with the faith, they focus on the true goal, which is heaven, right? And I say this, I buy real estate, why? So that I could spend my time in paradise. And when I talk about paradise, I talk about, Aruba and Bora Bora and, Hawaii, wherever we want to go. Italy, definitely, that's on the list. But at the end of the day, the true paradise is heaven. So what do I do then? I go to mass, I pray the rosary, and I preach that and teach that to my kids. And thankfully, I have a great spouse that does as well. And 31, which I know you were only expecting 30, but 31 is always give people more than they expect. And that's why it's number 31, because you were expecting 30 and we give you 31. And when you give people more than they expect, you build stronger relationships. And ultimately, it's just the best way to deliver service, and they will continue to come back to you for more. So I appreciate you guys listening. Those are the 30 lessons learned while we while we made 30 appearances to the closing table. It's been 1 full year since D&D has bought its first house together. I love my brother, Steven. Out of all of this, I made an Instagram post about this a couple weeks ago. Out of all of this growing, really what I gained the most is a brother in my partner, Steve. And I couldn't imagine doing it with anybody else. So I'm excited to have him on the show eventually. But I thank you guys for listening to the Frankie D'Astoli Show. Make sure you guys are going to church this week for Holy Week. Definitely listen to that bonus track if you haven't listened to it already. It's a great talk on Holy Week and some really important stuff. And I appreciate everybody's listening. Remember, pray the rosary, buy real estate. The next rosary and real estate event is going to be in May. So keep an eye on my Instagram. I will be dropping that date in the next week or so. And I hope to see you guys all out there. We had such a great talk on real estate and the rosary last time. We had a great turnout. Our group grew about 20%, which is really awesome. So I'd love to have you guys come out. I'll be posting about that one. Thank you guys so much for listening. Peace out.